guess we'll start something simple. What drew you all to wrestling?
Who wants to answer first?
This might be kind of a boring answer, but I always say when people ask me like, what's the first match you ever saw, wrestling, yada yada, like I don't know. I think I was just so young, I can't remember, I forgot. I just know that I've watched wrestling for as long as I can remember, and I feel very lucky that I also always knew what I wanted to do. Like I always wanted to be a pro wrestler, so that was kind of my experience.
Well, similar to Blade, I've been watching wrestling since I was very little. I was probably a toddler. I, however, did not want to be a wrestler at all. I wanted to be a manager. I wrote a letter to World Wrestling Federation when I was 9, asking if I could be the Body Donna's manager. Didn't work out so well for me.
Yeah, you were not. They were hard.
But I didn't want to be a wrestler until I saw Trish Stratus for the first time when I was in high school, and I completely changed my whole life. At that moment I saw her, I went, oh my god, I didn't realize that women could not only manage but also wrestle. And when I was 18, the day of my 18th birthday, I signed up for wrestling school.
Awesome. I literally saw the Road Warriors. That was literally it. I was like 6 years old and saw the Road Warriors on TV, and I was like, all right, some point in time, I want to do this. That was literally it. And I think like 2 seconds later, like Jim Cornette broke his legs falling down from the scaffold. That was the first match I ever seen. Sorry, kids. That was it.
So that's always a little fun question. Anybody from any era, if you could face, who would it be and kind of why?
Shawn Michaels, 150%. If I could go back in like 1996, and instead of Bret Hart, it was me wrestling him in the Iron Man match.
I got to allow
That would be the dream.
Mine would be, I'm a big Macho Man Randy Savage guy. Yeah, if I could wrestle anybody, I wish I could wrestle Macho Man Savage.
I'm 44 right now, and my inspiration has always been Stan Hansen in his 40s. So if I could face Stan Hansen when he was 44, that would be sick. Yeah, I'd like to just beat the hell out of him.
So you guys debuted in 2017 in Pro Wrestling Rampage. Talk about debuting there and winning the titles.
Oh, we won the titles right away. World title.
Oh,
World championship.
I didn't pick up on that. The first time they said Rampage, I was like, no, we debuted on Dynamite. You're talking about PWR, here once again. Yeah, that was our first time we ever tagged together, and we won a championship. Tag team championship, it was pretty cool.
I think we actually won with Heart Attack, too, which we've never done again. Yeah, we stole the Heart Foundation's finisher.
we probably
Sorry, guys. We stole it.
Yeah.
Had to win the world championship.
So you guys worked against in the ring Colby Reed and PB Smooth in there. What was it like working with those guys?
Believe it or not, PB is he actually is a giant, and that's it's funny. Like he's also like in real life he's a really nice guy. So yeah, I remember Kobe. At that time, he was like at a weird crossroads. I remember he was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna wrestle anymore. But like that match was like really sick. I don't know why. Like I like mismatched tag teams, and that's like a really cool tag team to be like a kicker guy with like a giant.
Right.
So it was really fun working.
It was a cool feeling because, like, I think Colby kind of looked up to both of us. Like me, for how long I've been wrestling for, and then him, Colby's like a big fan of his band. And then PB's kind of the same way. PB always, like, we're always coming to you for advice and stuff like that. So he always, anytime we get to wrestle each other, he liked it a lot. So, like, it's always nice when you get to perform with people you have a bond with.
So, Allie, which?
I go by both.
So you started out in the Indies in Canada as Cherry Bomb. Talking about working in the Indies in Canada and sort of where that gimmick came from.
bomb. I hated it initially. I was in wrestling school and I had pink bangs, black hair and pink bangs. And my trainer was like, this is gonna be your name, Cherry Bomb. And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't love it at first, but I fell in love with it. And I kept the name right up until I debuted with Impact Wrestling in 2016. And it was bittersweet to let the name go because, you know, I carried it with me for, you know, over 10 years at that point. But yeah, I wrestled on the Ontario indie scene for probably the first 6 years of my wrestling career was on the indies in Ontario. It was great. I loved it. It was wonderful.
You mentioned,
Like one of the first couple times I saw her in indie shows in Canada, the Runaways doing something church.
Yes, yes.
I wasn't even watching the match, I just heard it. I knew the girls' match was on, I heard the song Cherry Bomb, I was like, oh, that girl Cherry Bomb comes out to this song. I just thought she was like a superstar. She's a superstar. This is because I always thought she, you know, she looks incredible, and I was like, yeah, she comes out to this song. Oh my God, this girl's amazing.
you had mentioned trainers, so I read a little bit that you guys were training a new trainer. Training staff,
It's like mainly like all the physical stuff I do is through him. So it's like, yeah, like I owe everything.
I always say like between like Andy and then we have a group of kids in Buffalo, Puff, Kevin Blackwood, Dave Garcia, anybody that kind of like I put my name on that I help train. Like he did get like initial training from a place in Canada in the late '90s, and even all those kids I just mentioned got their initial training at Grabbers Anonymous, the school in Buffalo, New York. But I like to think like I helped them. Like I mean, he did a lot. As far as our training, a lot of his was like kind of like on the job training because he was touring so much, and plus it's like, you know, at the we were like 36. Yeah, so it's been like pro wrestling. It's hard to train for pro wrestling and avoid injuries. He can only really train so much because he could get hurt for touring, could get hurt for shows getting booked. So it was a lot of like on the job training, and then the same thing with the other kids. Like we just all started getting cars together and traveling. You know, I would watch matches, or we would talk in the car. It was like I always call it like advanced training. You know, as far as like psychology and that kind of stuff.
do you think, you know, a lot of people say in some of the wrestling, I won't mention the promotion, but that the art of storytelling is kind of missing. Do you see that in today's wrestling?
I wouldn't say. Can you guys hear us okay? By the way, I was just checking. Oh, this storytelling in wrestling. To me, that's my favorite part of wrestling. You know, in movies are the same thing. It's storytelling. Like we were talking about a little bit today. Like yes, like everything, wrestling has evolved. I mean, there's like a newer, like faster style. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't know. I wouldn't say that storytelling is gone. I don't think storytelling. I mean, maybe you see a little less of it than you used to. I don't know if I really agree with that. But there's still like I don't think that it'll never go away because that's the main. You know, I don't know. I guess maybe to try to explain it to you guys, we think like us as wrestlers try to think of storytelling of, you know, let's say me and Andy Butler have a match, and we do all this like high-fiving, flashy stuff, and the crowd's watching like, oh, hey. But then it's easily forgotten. You know, sure they're excited in the moment, but then the crowd's easily forgotten about that. You know what I mean? Like they see more matches, or they go home and they watch TV. But with storytelling, like you're saying, that's the stuff that like people, you know, they can see. I'm trying to think of an example, like
Right here, listen, dude. No one remembers anything about the physicality between Macho Man and Jake the Snake until he pulled a snake out and it bit his arm.
Yeah, and you know we're still talking about that,
right?
In 2020.
What happened before that? Does anyone know? No. Do you remember he got bit in the arm by a snake?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Storytelling is the stuff that grabs people and keeps them invested. You know, I mean, that's the big difference maker. So that's why and that's why I'm saying I don't think storytelling will ever go away because it's a major part of pro wrestling.
And what's cool now, like, I think what's different about wrestling now than it was like back in the day. Most were like, you kind of only had like 3 types of wrestling at that time. And it was like Memphis, where you were always going to get stories. And in New York, you were going to get like stories, but the dudes were giants. Like they were just monsters. You know what I mean? Like, and it was kind of cool, but I mean, back then, you had to be in that area to watch that stuff. You had to be in those territories to watch stuff. The cool thing about pro wrestling now is it's just another form of media done just physically, where you can go and watch a high voltage match like a heavy metal song. Watch some like GCW match with like luchador dudes just flying around and going, you know what I mean? Like doing stuff like that. And it's like, it's something that's like, wasn't around back then. You had to seek that stuff out. And then you'd have to like, almost make weird playlists of like these, you know, where it was just those matches, but then like the tape would run out. Now, you can watch any type of wrestling you want, any form at any time. So it's like, it's insane that if one story can capture your attention, like past all that other stuff, like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's what people remember. You're not gonna remember the Giphy thing, but you're gonna remember it that day, and that day is gonna be sick as hell. Like those gifs are amazing, and I'll watch every one of them. But like every time I watch like a super gif, I go and watch the match, and then I'm just like, oh man, there's no story. Like you're not getting any context to it. But it's also sick to watch for that second. That's what you want to watch. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like another form of like music or movie, where you can watch luchadors do crazy stuff, or you can watch like the other day, Jungle Boy and Ricky Starks had like a match that was like, they told a great story. You know what I mean? And then the match finished, and oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't start here. You know what I mean? It's great. So that's yeah. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but I love wrestling.
No, that's like, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about AEW is, you know, we put out a product where there's, you know, you'll see Darby and Jeff Hardy do the match they had on Wednesday. You'll see Suzuki and Joe do like a Japanese style match. Like there's all these different types of matches and styles of wrestling in one program. And I think that's awesome.
So Ellie, you talked about signing with Impact, and you were 2-time knockouts champion. Talk about that if you could.
Yeah, well, when I signed with Impact, that was my first television contract, and I actually took a selfie of myself after I signed it, and I had like tears in my eyes. I was like so excited. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. I loved TNA. I loved TNA. When I became a wrestler, I was working the indies. The women's division in TNA had really like blown up, and Gail Kim and Awesome Kong, and it was a great time for women in wrestling, and I just admired the knockout so much. So it really meant a lot to me to then, you know, sign with Impact. And I won the knockouts title for the first time as a fluke, and I was
gonna say the 2 times that you won were like very different.
Yeah, they were very, very different. So the first time I won them, I was Maria Canellis' assistant, and I was knocked out and fell on top of the girl, and the ref counted 1, 2, 3.
TNA Impact loves doing this person has no idea how to wrestle angle.
Yes.
Cody Meter did it for a bit, she did it, like they always like having a character who's like, this person doesn't know how to wrestle, so like, but they eventually start
Yeah, they figure it out on the job.
as time goes on.
Right, and I have to make something like known. Pretending like you don't know how to wrestle is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, ever. Because at that point I've been wrestling for 10 years, so now I'm getting in the ring pretending to be like tripping over my feet, and it was like it was a really weird experience. But when I pinned her 1, 2, 3, I was bawling hysterically. I want to say Earl Hebner was the ref, and he lifted my arm, and I was bawling my eyes out because even though it was kind of silly, the setup for it, it was still such a huge moment for me because when I started wrestling, I never thought I was going to go anywhere, ever. I never, ever did. It just seemed like an impossible mountain that I was never going to climb. I never felt like, at the time, you know, divas. Like that was sort of when I came in at 2004, like the diva era had kind of started, and I just didn't feel like I looked like that at all. And it was a really weird time in wrestling, being a female, being a woman, it was just weird. And so I never thought I was gonna get to anything. And then when it happened in TNA, it was such a big deal for me. So my whole experience at Impact was so good in terms of like, I learned how to work in front of a camera. I got to work with incredible talent, incredible women, and learned so much. I learned so much from Maria. She's such an incredible human. She took so much time with me and taught me how to be confident in front of a camera, and I just learned so much there. And I got to work with Rosemary, and we get to tell a really great story with Sue Young and go into this undead realm and just do this wild, wild stuff. And I loved every second at Impact.
I mean, also, like, I remember the second time I worked at Chelsea.
I did. I got to work with one of my best friends ever. I got to wrestle one of my best friends and won the knockout style.
And a thing for wrestlers is TV wrestling is time is always a big issue because, the show only goes so long, so everything has to match up. And so when you're given lots of,
We have 15 minutes.
15 minutes, yeah.
15 minutes is a lot of time on
It's
television.
a lot, especially for like a knockouts, girls match. Usually you get half of that, maybe like 7 or 8. So like I remember that. I was really, really proud. Like her and Chelsea, they had a lot of time. If anybody, if you can dig that match up, it's really worth watching. It's really good. It was just a big moment that you get. That was the second time I went to it. It was awesome.
Thanks.
So a few years back, we had what was known as the Women's Revolution. Where do you see women's wrestling now after that whole PR thing?
It's funny because the women's revolution, and I'm not at all knocking it. I think, especially in that company, the women deserved to have a platform. They deserved to have time. They deserved to have matches and tell stories. Like they earned that. But that was happening on the indies already. I was working for companies like Shimmer and Shine, and if you don't know, they're all women's promotions in the US at the time, and they were giving us incredible time, number one, and they were giving us stories, and the product that we were, producing, even though it was on the indies, was like, it was pushed by women, and it was backed by people, so this was already happening on the indies, and it was happening in TNA. And it needed to happen in that company because that company is, it's a huge company and there's a lot of eyes on it, and a lot of young people are looking up to women in that company, and they weren't given the time they deserve. So I think it needed to happen. Now I think it's a whole other world for women's wrestling. Like there are opportunities everywhere, and I'm so thankful for not only for me but for the next generation of women that get to come in and for young people to see female athletes performing on that level gets me emotional because I feel like we've all worked so hard for so long to be taken seriously, and I think it's in a really good place, and I'm just so proud of everyone that have paved the way and that are still on the path and that are just coming into it. I think it's a really good time.
Later, I'm going to take you back to 2006. The HWA Heavyweight Championship was on the line to face John Moxley.
Yeah.
If you remember, just talk about what it was like facing him way back then.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I wrestled him a lot back then. I don't think I can remember the exact match we're talking about. I think we wrestled for the heavyweight title maybe a couple times. But yeah, I wrestled Mox a lot. Long story short, it was like I moved to Cincinnati, I trained there, ended up going back home to Buffalo for about 3-4 years, and I went back to Cincinnati a second time, which I'm terrible with years, it was 2006. And when I went back the second time, there was a new young kid, Moxley, and he had a lot of promise, so they paired me up with him. And it was really, and then to wrestle Mox again a couple weeks ago, it's really cool to see how far he's come, and when he was young, it was just very obvious he had a lot of talent, so it's good that he was around the right people, and I'm really happy for his success and all that he's doing.
Very cool. So let's get into AEW a little bit. How did you guys get signed off
2019, and I had no idea what I was going to do or where I was going to go, and I was sort of, I don't know, like in a weird kind of stage in my life, and I just got a call. I got a call, and it was one of the most amazing moments of my life. I like fell on the floor and I cried. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, what? Hold on, excuse me, what? You want me to sign what? Like it was, and then I signed and I started, and I want to say I officially started with AEW March or April of 2019.
It was cool for me to see too, because when her contract ran out at Impact, so she was just kind of back in limbo. She was really stressed about it, had confidence issues and stuff like that. And it wasn't long. I don't even think it was 2 weeks after done with Impact. AEW called her, and it was. I mean, that was to have her confidence down here and then to get a phone call like that. It was really cool to see her just skyrocket.
Yeah, it was definitely a game changer for sure.
And then with us, it was pretty much me and him started doing some stuff on the indies together, and we kept evolving more and more. Like he came up with the names for Blade, we started working on character stuff, and we were really good at Beyond Wrestling,
A
C4.
lot of places let us be the road warriors.
Yeah,
So like we would just go in and just like C4 Wrestling in Ottawa, just like, yo, the place is yours. And it was like you'd go there and they would pair us up with the animals, and then we would just be like going around in the crowd, just throwing chairs at each other, and like they like a lot of those companies, like I think saw the potential of us as almost like the new, like almost like outlaws, you know what I mean? Where like we would come in and it's like everyone always thinks like horror and stuff like that when they think of the name or whatever, but like if you really look at it, it's kind of like Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, or like kind of how like that, I don't know, but like a Frank Miller version of it. Anyways, so like, you know, then they would like allow us to do the things that like we needed to do to be seen. And it was like, oh my, and it was almost like they all talk to each other and like, just let them do their thing. Like just let them go in there and just have the matches they want to have. Because we would get to places and we would just start throwing ideas and we would be like, yeah, sure, yeah, do that. So it was like, we kind of took advantage of like the fact that all these like indies were like letting us be us. It was really cool. And that was it. I think we just like got to do our like weird stuff, and then like AEW saw it and like, hey, we could probably put her with us and we can all just be like a weird.
yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, because at the time I was sort of in this weird, I didn't know what to be totally honest, I didn't really know what my character was at the time. I was sort of still kind of the Impact Alley character, and I was just like, this is not really who I am anymore. I don't know. I have to switch gears here, and you know, the idea was presented that we could all work together, and it just made sense. It's like, this is my husband and this is my best friend. It's like that's chemistry that's already there. And then we got to crawl out of a ring together, all three of us.
That was like a really cool moment. I can still remember, like the three of us underneath the ring, and there was this is at AEW for our, she had already, for me and his debut, and her debut with us. We were underneath the ring, and there was a production guy with us who kind of.
Who was with us at TNA as well. So we have a lot of people that have worked at Impact Wrestling that now worked at AEW, and this specific person had worked with us at TNA for a few years.
So now all of a sudden we're in this like huge arena, this huge crowd, like live television, we're underneath the ring, and Dispenza, the production guy who was with us before, was with us, and like he cuts it up, and like it was just like, okay, like, and I remember like all of us like looking at each other like, okay, you ready? Like, let's go. And, like, it was just really cool to like all do it together. You know, it was like a really big moment for us.
How long did you have to be in with her?
It wasn't bad at all.
It wasn't long. They stuck us. Yeah.
I was really bummed because I wanted that story.
Oh.
I wanted to be under there for like 5 hours, be like, oh, I had a peanut bucket.
Because I remember Swamp was under there, he had a story, and he was under there for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
That's, I've
My
heard those stories.
claustrophobia could never. That's horrible.
I was like, I have terrible anxiety issues, so like when I heard this that we were going to be under the ring, yeah, it just started going. And I remember all the stories, like I've heard of guys being under there for 4 hours, and guys like shitting and pissing in buckets, excuse my language, and like I've heard a lot of weird stories. So I was just all over the place. And then when I found out it was they just did a blackout like the segment before, and we screwed up. We were literally there for about 5 minutes.
I was obsessing over. I kept saying to Spencer, like, "Are you sure we're gonna be able to get out?" Because I could just imagine like they would get out fine, and I would be like trying to get through, you know, like just horrified. And all worked out, thank God.
And that was like they told us about it a couple months in advance. And my experiences in wrestling, whenever you hear about big things like that, especially in advance, it usually doesn't happen. So when they told us like, hey, we're gonna have you guys debut, and you're gonna come up through the ring and stuff, and I was like, oh, cool, we'll see. And then we never heard anything else about it, and then we got there that day. And like I said, by this point, those 2 months, my anxiety had already created so many different scenarios of what was gonna happen, and then they were just, I said something to somebody, and they were just like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, we're coming out of the ring, and they're like, yeah. And then same as her, like, I was like, well, who's gonna, like, are we supposed to, you know, are we, like, they're like, yeah, we're gonna cut the thing, and in my head, I was like, do we have to cut it? Like, what are we, like?
Yeah, I imagine like we're gonna have box cutters, we're gonna be cutting up in the ring, like what? Like, how are we gonna do this? Is it gonna be an elevator? Is it gonna be a step ladder? Like,
And like, it's live television, you know what I mean? So like, in my head, I was thinking like, what if I go to cut it? It doesn't cut, and then, you know, time, 3 seconds seems like 3 minutes on live TV, and like, yeah, but it all worked out. It was amazing.
So, Allie, I read that the character of the bunny was a mesh of a couple horror characters.
Yeah.
Which ones were those?
so Baby from House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, that was a really big influence on it. I like the movie The Strangers a lot. It's one of my, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite horror movies, but I love the concept of, this sounds terrible, but killers showing up and doing terrible things for no reason. So that was inspiration for it. And then, like, this makes me sound a little crazy, but it's sort of like a version of myself, I guess. The part of my character is a lot of who I am, but if I was not a good person, I guess. I was the opposite of a good person. But horror plays a huge part in my character and like just creatively, like when I try to think of storyline ideas, things like that, I definitely steal little bits and pieces from some of my favorite shows. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it's my favorite show of all time, so I steal little things from that, but like horror movies, and the Vampire Diaries. I love the Vampire Diaries. And I did take a couple things from there too. But yeah, I try to like get inspiration from mostly horror movies.
Very cool. So, Bash at the Beach, you guys faced DDP and Dustin.
Yeah.
Talk about
Amazing.
what it was like working with those two legends.
That is one of the most insane days of my life. Yeah. That literally is one of the most insane days of my life. That was the only show I only missed 2 shows for my band every time I died. Like I only missed 2 shows in 25 years. And one of them was to wrestle DDP, and then the other one was Tommy Hirashi, which is one of my both. You know, I like both of them in different ways. So that one was wild because the band was in Paris, France, and I was I'm texting them hey, is everybody there? Is everybody safe? Like doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, like trying to pay attention to that match. You know what I mean? They did this weird thing where DDP wanted to fly. They flew us down to Atlanta, and we worked with DDP a little bit in Atlanta. But the flight got messed up, so we showed up really late. So when we got there, we just kind of did 2 things, and then went back to the airport and flew home. It was really weird. That whole day it's the most insane thing. He wanted to do a dive in the match too, so we were all right, there's that. And you're you never did that once in your career. And then he's looking at us, you got me right, you got me right, bro. Yeah, we got you. But yeah, it was just an insane day. And then that was the show that we got signed. That was after that show.
Oh my God, it was.
Yeah, and I had to get on a flight to Denmark. So I had to get up early, and that night oh yeah, I tried to buy a dude had a pair of cowboy boots that were made by Adidas. And I was like, dude, I'll give you any amount of money you say right now. Like, I want those boots so bad. And the guy who designed them gave them to him, so he wouldn't give them to me. And I was like, really mad. Anyways, but we were at this bar after for a really long time. We were with the guys or whatever. And like, we had no plans after that. Like, they weren't like, hey, like after this match, you know, you're gonna go into this thing with someone. It was like the first time we're like, we had nothing. And like, I remember the match like ended, and we're at this place, we're like eating, and we're like, oh, it was good. It was good.
Able to bring us back.
Was Miami? Was it Miami?
Yeah. Like, you're going on tour now, so you know, we'll see. We're gonna be here when you get back. I was like, okay. And then like around 2 in the morning, Nick Jackson and Cody like grab us and like pull us aside and like, hey guys, we're gonna be like full contracts. Is that cool? And we were like, what? And like it's such a weird call home, like at like 2 in the morning, like, Hannah, I'm working for this wrestling company now, like full time. So we got to figure that out. I got 2 full-time jobs. So, all right, we'll talk about it when I get home. All right, love you. Yeah, it was just that, and then I went to Denmark. It was just like I played guitar for 3 weeks.
I want to like extend off because I forget about this stuff, and that was. Do you have the date of that Bash the Beach show by any chance?
I do not. Okay.
We'll find it. It's on cagematch.net, I'm sure.
I should know because that is the day I finally got signed after 20 years. But I don't know. I mean, if anybody could use this in their own life, like you know, the stories we were just telling, when AEW originally brought us in and we came up to the ring and stuff like that, they didn't sign us to contracts right away. It was just kind of like, hey, you guys come in and do this thing. And then I was like, hey, can you guys come back next week and do this thing? Okay, cool. We'll come back next week. And like, so like he was saying, like we weren't really sure if it was going anywhere, like how we were doing. And then we did the stuff with DDP, and you know, my negative brain, of course, just went to like, oh, okay, well, we're going to take diamond cutters and then right off into the sunset, and that's it. And then for him to even get there, like you said, like the band was playing in Paris that day. What was it? That was the first show you ever missed?
That was the first show I had on this.
Yeah, he was
25 years.
Yeah, so he's the only member of the band that never missed a show. That was the first show he ever had to miss. To then, as we said, wrestle DDP and then fly internationally like the next morning. And you know, after the match, everything went well. And then, like you said, we were at the restaurant, and then finally Nick and Cody like waved us over. I mean, to me, it's strange because I just, you know, I've been building up that moment in my head for so long. Like when it finally happened, like I didn't cry, I wasn't overjoyed. I was just kind of like blank and just like, holy shit, this is like a real thing. Like, oh my god! And he actually pulled me outside. I was just like, hey man, we got to take a second here. This is a big deal. So it was, that was, like I said, I should really learn that date because that was it's a really big deal. But as I was saying, it's just, you know, if you're going for something, you know, you're going to hear no a lot. But if it's something you're really, really passionate about, it's something you really, really want, and you keep going, you know, that old saying, the cream always rises to the top. Like they can only deny it so long. And you know, that day, it just worked out for all of us. It was amazing.
And you recently had a match with another Ohio Fan Fest guest, Darby Allin. Throwing him down the stairs, were you worried at all? We're just going to break this man?
Dude, okay, let me just tell you, like, as a pro wrestler, like, coming from something else and coming into pro wrestling, like, the similarities between wrestling and music, there's a ton of them. The one thing that never happens in music is someone asking you to hurt their body. So, like, Darby is a wild dude, and every single time we wrestle, I have to, like, go, are you okay with this? And he will always confidently say, yes. And at first I used to feel really guilty if something had happened. And then you have to then look him in the eyes and see he is totally okay with it. And go, all right, dude, that's what we're doing, man. All right. And it was like, I was I was a little too safe with him. I think I could have thrown him a little harder after watching it, but I did throw him downstairs. Yeah, it was wild. He's probably my favorite person to wrestle. Like we have a really good give and take from each other. So
and that was because when you threw him down the stairs, just before that,
Oh my gosh.
Jeff Hardy had
I can't.
Hogan Pro Wrestling like taken my head and like put it into a wall. But I mean, I'm doing like ECW stuff, crowd rolling with Jeff Hardy. So I was just really excited, and I put my head into the wall, and I had a scar right there. Busted my head open.
Yeah.
So basically, I went down the stairs first, me and Jeff, and then he threw a garbage down the stairs. As he was walking down the stairs, he saw blood all over the floor.
Dude,
from
the
my
worst
head.
thing you want to
He
see
thought it was
is
Darby. He's like, oh my god, I killed Darby.
I literally thought I killed Darby. Yeah, I forgot to tell you guys that.
Yeah, that's just.
I came downstairs and there was just blood everywhere, and I'm like, I remember. I think my move has happened. I did this with Mox the other day too, where I think dudes are bleeding. I just roll them over and then step on their throat, which is like a weird thing to do. But then I'm like assessing them at that time, so it's like it looks menacing, but really I'm going, dude, are you okay? Like, I want to know. And then I remember walking down the thing, and I remember like throwing Darby over, and like putting my foot on his throat and being like, "Are you bleeding?" And he's like, "I think so." And I'm like, I look up, and now this is a really messed up thing because he's my best friend. You look up and you just see him pouring blood in your head, and you go, "Oh man, okay, good." That's sweet. And it's just And then I remember slipping on your blood, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should be saying all this.
So talk about the evolution of Butcher, Blade, and the Bunny through the start of AEW until now. What do you think we can expect from you guys?
I'm like really proud of like the evolution stuff. Like there was a graphic for our match tonight on Rampage, and I just thought about it, like the way me and him look compared to like when we first were starting on the Indies, and it's not to discredit how we looked when we first started. Like I've enjoyed all of it. It's just I think it's really cool like how much we've evolved. I mean, people tell him all the time. Like, he had a match with Moxley. He wasn't happy with his cardio, so we just started working hard and dropped a lot of weight, and then I was putting weight back on. And I mean, like all of us, I really think we've evolved like the last 2 years.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I feel like we're all much more comfortable and confident in ourselves, and I think it's reflected in our work and our presentation and all of that. I think you can see how hard we're all working on ourselves individually and how much we support each other as a team. And I think creatively, even though we're a team and we look similarly, each of us kind of brings our own like twist on what we feel the Butcher, the Blade, the Bunny are. You know, and I think you can kind of see that when we come to the ring. We don't quite look. I think when we first came out together, we looked kind of the same. Like we kind of had like a uniform, you know. And now I think we're at a point where it's like, this is what you look like, you know, with your glasses and the whole right. And this is what you look like with your leather. Like one day he just came out wearing a leather jacket.
Dude, this is the thing that's like really cool about our job is that no one talks to you about that stuff.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, if you go up to like someone and you say like, "Hey man, I got this idea, blah blah blah," you know what I mean? Like, who's it? Like, and it's like a higher up will tell you like,
maybe not, maybe
like that, but like no one's really pulling the trigger.
There's a lot of creative freedom. Yeah, we have a lot of creative freedom, like a lot.
I like hurt myself. I tore my bicep. I tore my right bicep in November, and I had time off. And in that time, like my band broke up, and it just was like whatever. It just wasn't a great time. So I sat at home and I got to watch them wrestle. And it's different when you're like there and you're like outside the ring and you can like feel it, and you're in a ring and you're thinking about the match and you're thinking about the ways you have to sell yourself while you're doing this stuff, and like you don't really pay attention to like the motions unless something like gnarly happens. You know what I mean? Where like you weren't there for a part of the call and like something happens where you didn't expect it in real life. But like when you're at home and you're watching like two people who have like helped train me, and you're watching them like currently work, and you're going, oh, this is the stuff I haven't been doing. Like, I'm seeing the aggression that Jesse's pushing out. I'm seeing the aggression that Allie's throwing out there. And like, I can then go, oh shit, I need to be on that level. So like, at that time, like she was like literally wrestling for like the title and shit. Like she had like a gnarly run when I was injured. And then he had this gnarly run when I was injured, where they were both wrestling singles matches like every night, just kicking ass. And all you do at home is you just collect that data, you collect the data, and then I was like, all right, I need to be the super monster. I understand now. You know what I mean? Like I got it. Like where I was like, okay, the super monster is that dude that like in my world is the guy down the street that like works on the car that everybody says is like on coke and has like wild dogs and you know what I mean? Like you don't know like, well, just stay away from that house, all right? I don't know what happens there, but that's it. And I came up with this like new character. And there was a night where we were outside hanging out with Tony Khan, and I just looked at him and I was like, dude, I'm gonna be the coolest wrestler you have there. You have no opportunity to not book me. Wait until you see what I do. And it was kind of cool, like that he gives you the opportunities to do that. And it's almost kind of like he gives you the opportunity to fail, which I think is like the greatest opportunity. If you get anything from this, failure is not what you think it is. Failure is just a part of the success. That's the first part.
It's very important.
So like, you know, you can do something and you can fail. That's amazing. That's data. That's someone telling you something doesn't work. That's great. All right, I'm gonna take another crack at it. And that was it. And it's just literally trying to be a super beast. That was it. I wanted to be like the nasty dude on the street.
And I feel like because we all trust each other so much, like Butch didn't need to come to us and be like, hey guys, listen, this is what I'm doing with the character now. So it was just, this is what he's gonna do. Okay.
Yeah.
I trust that he's making a great judgment call on his character, but he's still part of the Butch and the
It's
Blade.
always gonna make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know you're looking out for all of us, all three, always. We're always looking out for each other, no matter what direction we're going in. It's we're, you know, what do the Three Musketeers say? All for one for all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
But like, I think that's one of the funnest parts of our characters is that I don't know, I feel like sometimes in pro wrestling people can get a little carried away with things making too much sense. And you know, some stuff we do, it doesn't have to make sense. Example I'm thinking of is during the pandemic, obviously it was like strange times, nobody knew what was going on, especially with wrestling and entertainment stuff. And you know, a credit to Andy's brain is he came up with an idea of like us wearing a color that would like help us stand out amongst everything. And he was like, we'll wear all white, so when we're on TV, we'll stand out. And then also, you know, and as far as making sense, like we're technically supposed to be butchers anyways. Butchers always wear white, but I mean, there's a lot of it to it. Like I liked that when we wore the white stuff, we never really explained why. You know, because like you said, it could be butcher shop stuff. Island with Dr. Moreau, like they all white. Like there's a lot of different things. So I like leaving things up to like people's own imaginations a lot of times. And then you know, I always think it's funny when people just get shitty about it too. They're just like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. That's not the idea. But you know, and then Tony Khan even admitted to Andy. He was like, yeah, that's why I started like using you guys more, because people were talking about it more, because you know, whether we were in the crowd trying to help out with pandemic stuff, or if we were managing or wrestling, that we stood out. So, you know, yeah. So that's,
And it just always make people ask questions. It's that easy. If you want to stand out, make everybody ask questions. That's literally it. And you don't ever have to even answer them. It doesn't have to be anything real. I literally one day I was watching John McLaughlin play guitar and he wore all white. I was like, I'm gonna wear all white. That literally was it. I was like, he looks cool as hell. He's using like a double neck guitar and he's wearing all white. Ron Fish Orchestra.
And I got one last question before we let you go. Andy, I was in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago for AEW, and you faced Wardlow.
Yeah.
I've never been in a ring or anything, but when you face a monster like that, how
Yeah.
different is it?
You know what? Like my favorite type of wrestling is just big meaty dudes, right? Like you know, that just that like Stan Hansen again, just to go back to just like dudes just beating each other up. Like I get so excited for those matches, you know what I mean? But that match, I was so, for some reason, I just had my headspace. I was so nervous for that match because I knew it was going to end with 4 power bombs. Yeah, and like you're just like, oh, man, like 4 power bombs. And I remember like I was doing like sick things in my head. Like, all right, if I take 1 power bomb on the outside, he most certainly can't power bomb me 4 times. So I'm like trying to pitch like me getting power bomb down the ramp, getting power bomb through like the timekeeper's table, getting power bombed into the guardrail at one point, power bomb down to concrete.
Just
so you can take. So I could just take one. Yeah, but like one real bad one, and then like it would just accumulate the 4. To be honest with you, it was awesome. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was like my little All Japan like 3-man match where like I got beat. It was cool. And like for real, like for any wrestler to tell you that it's me, that's such baloney. It's literally hearing that crowd cheer his name over and over again only meant they wanted to see him beat someone else. And that was cool, man. And like you get to be in the ring for stuff like that, it just feels great because I knew where his head was at. You know what I mean? Hometown crowd, just like, and I was like, all right, man, let's go. We're animals, right? Godzilla versus King Kong.
And going back to storytelling, I really thought, you know, him beating another monster like you really sells that.
Yeah, it gives him a lot of credibility.
And the best, I'm the tiniest giant in the AEW. So like then he had to wrestle Lance, and then he had to wrestle Big Cass, which is insane, right? Like the evolution of man. I was just the ape. I was in the hand.
Right, everybody, put your hands together for the butcher.
Thanks a lot, guys. We talked a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, we're chatting. We're chatting.
Thanks for coming, guys. Really appreciate it. That was
Otherworldly.